Once more, this is Sunday edition on KTN News. My panel and I are back for the last session. Let's talk about something that is related to the referendum debate, and that is the handshake. Which way, what gives? This last week, for the very first time, the handshake team met. We'll be coming to them. But before we do that, let me now settle a derby that has been ongoing off here. It's a 3 against 1. For the, your final submissions.
Yes.
On the issue of what should happen to a losing candidate in an election.
Exactly. And I think we do appreciate the position or the role that democracy plays in our society. That you have to appreciate who has won a particular position. But because of our, because of our unique politics, in terms of our ethnicized way, in terms of our composition,
all right,
we have to chant a destination where we get solutions which are going to address the issues that we have as a country. We cannot compare ourselves with the countries which are homogeneous in terms of languages, cultural heritages. Like America, for example, they use one language. Wait, yes, in terms of language. Here in Kenya,
which history do you read?
Can I finish? We cannot look at Britain. They use one language.
But just finish your point.
Absolutely. So we appreciate that we are ethnicized in terms of our politics. So how do we find a solution which, addresses that problem, which is unique to our country? And that's why I'm saying the issue of winner takes it all is something that needs to be addressed. Because, for example, if I use the example of the former PM, Raila, this is a person who, if the records of 8.8 are anything to go by, won or got, the support of over 6 million. These are not just people who you are going to just say that it has happened, let's move forward. This person has to be kept busy, and that's why we are talking about now reviewing the executive in a way that this person is also kept busy. And that's why the handshake came, calling, because he knew, President Kenyatta knew that Raila left unattended or not busy, is going to be a thorn in the flesh.
No.
Look here. That's a reality.
There are thoughts which cannot be entertained.
All right.
Let me national broadcast.
Who goes first?
We cannot entertain. Ben, we cannot entertain thoughts that somebody must be kept busy. Democracy has its rules, has its tenets. And one of the major tenets of democracy, one of it is that a loser in a free and fair election must accept that he has lost an election. 2 is doing elections periodically, which we do after every 5 years. It is not our work or the job of Kenyans to make sure that Raila is employed somewhere. If he lost an election, the tactics of trying to be busy somewhere should not be the thing to go by. And we are setting a wrong precedent. What will happen tomorrow to a person who loses a gubernatorial election? They'll start asking the governor, you either appoint me the CEC of trade or something, or you call me the chief somebody, or all those names. So we need to look at, and then as we proscribe things to help this country, we cannot prescribe them in a personified manner.
Thank you.
We prescribe them in a manner that looks at the prosperity of this country.
And Hillary Clinton, the losing candidate in the 2016 US elections, garnered 65 million votes.
Yes.
And she's mangering, as you call it. Yes, Mark.
Let's be very clear. First and foremost, leadership is not a position. That's the biggest mistake we make in this country. Having a title does not make you a leader. You must be a leader before you get into office. If becoming an MP makes you a leader, then you are not a leader. Let's begin there. Second issue. Raila Odinga and other presidential losers are not teenagers. It is teenagers who we keep busy. They're not children, Brian. If they cannot keep themselves busy without the exchequer giving them a check, they do not deserve to even hold an ID card. Let them go back to primary school where games are put, where there is a program for when that tells you when to play games because you need to be kept busy. That is not the space.
That's our context.
Fair enough. Dismas?
I do not wish to respond to Brian
final shot.
Voodoo philosophy.
All right.
I don't want to respond to his philosophy.
All right, let's get back to the handshake issue, which is very much related. And of course, the handshake team did meet for the very first time just this past week. There were also other more developments for extending that conversation. Raila Odinga did meet more people from the GEMA community, from the Nairobi business community. Let's listen to what has been said this past week.
Very soon, after the committee that has been given the mandate to spearhead the handshake to the grassroots, that we shall get involved from the ward level to the constituency level up to the county levels of all the counties in the country.
When we talk about building bridges, we are not talking about politics of 2022. We are talking about how we get a firm foundation for our future. We have reflected on the past, and now it is the time to build our future as one people.
We are determined to move across this country with a similar message that we have to bridge, spread the gospel of bridging peace initiative all across this nation, spearheaded by His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and His Excellency Raila Odinga. We do hope that with this country is going to achieve and get a rapid flight towards its economic, social, and political progress.
Some ODM legislators speaking about the handshake and do you buy this narrative, especially by ODM, that the handshake has nothing to do with 2022?
If you believe that the handshake has got nothing to do with 2022, then it means that the sun doesn't set or the sun doesn't rise. Everything that a politician does is related to politics. And right now the issue at hand is 2022. But now going back to building bridges,
yes.
You remember there was a bridge in Budalangi, Sigiri, which collapsed. And part of the reason as to why it collapsed because it was not anchored on any foundation. That's number one. And then number two, professionals were not consulted. There were no road engineers, there were no structural engineers. It collapsed. The same may befall these building bridges that we have right now. Because, you know, deals which are prepared in the boardrooms, cooked in the boardrooms by the elite, and then served on unsuspecting masses will never, ever fly. Because for this deal to be a success, it must be stakeholder-driven. It's not sufficient for us to place so much faith on two individuals, in as much as they mean well for Kenya. But we have to immunize that, because we are being told there are now cartels from Jubilee that want to scatter the process, and there are cartels from NASA that want to scatter the process. And we go back and ask ourselves, when President Kenyatta met with Raila Odinga and they said they have a handshake, and I understand right now they're being referred to as handshake principles, whose interest were they pursuing? Are they pursuing family interest, or they are pursuing national interest? If they are pursuing national interest, how come national concerns have not been taken into active consideration? Because if you want to prescribe a solution affecting Kenyans, why can't you ask Kenyans to give you their views? And the Kenyan Conference of Catholic Bishops has said that for this bridge to be effective, all stakeholders must be consulted. Mura back in Mosocho in Kisii must be consulted to give our views. And a few days ago, I was in Undanyi. I met a fella called Said Bakari. And from the way he spoke, he said, every Kenyan is a stakeholder in Kenya.
All right.
Yeah, all of us must be consulted. And that's why this building bridges concept, if it has to go the next level, we must be consulted.
Thank you.
But a curious thing has happened. Right. We understand that Raila Odinga met that group of 14 people. And if you draw parallels to building a bridge, those are not professionals in the bridge construction. There were no structural engineers there. There were no quantity surveyors there. They were probably passers-by. But during that meeting, that Raila gave them a briefing. Is it not curious that one of the principles was missing?
All right.
I mean, President Kenyatta was not in that meeting.
Right. You've used
what
a lot
does that mean?
All right, thank you. You've used a lot of symbolism in that. I'm wondering if this Said Bakari is a fictional character.
No, it's I mean, if you ask your correspondent in Undanyi to look for Said Bakari, they'll fish him out.
Great views. Mark, do you think that Kenya is on course on this building bridges thing? I don't know, depending on what was the objective in the first place.
I wrote an article on the Standard this week, and I emphatically said that if the Kenyan people will not wrestle the handshake from the politician's hand and take the matters handshake into our own hands, then the handshake will fail, for the very reason that Dismas has discussed. Our politicians are the progeny and the children of night visits between witch doctors and tribalism, and they birth our parliament. That's how it's done. That's how deeply entrenched tribalism is in the psyche of our parliamentarians and our senators. The president himself said that the biggest challenge he's facing in the handshake is the very people you were speaking to during the State of the Nation, because they remain the primary benefactors, the primary beneficiaries of tribalism and division in this country. If we must succeed, we must, as a people, take matters into our own hands. For us to sit on this panel, to sit in our homes and expect that politicians will implement a program which will spell the end of their own political careers is an exercise in stupidity and futility.
Right.
So the reality of the matter is this. I do not believe, other than Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Odinga and a few others, I do not believe the political goodwill exists to implement the handshake, and that's where the trap is. What needs to happen is this needs to be an initiative that is owned by the people. Simply, I'll give an example. Let every father tell his daughter to marry outside their tribe. Let every father tell his son to marry outside the tribe. Those are the kind of solutions we need.
All right. Brian, final thoughts.
I think, to me, the handshake was good for economic development, investor confidence. It was good for cohesion, but it was bad for politics, because I would want to understand where, the person of one Raila, who used to play at the gallows of the opposition in terms of NASA, would want to, bring out the issues that he used to bring out. Remember,
like,
very
for
well,
example,
Ben,
who is going to blow the whistle for this NYS?
Absolutely, the new. And in fact, if Raila right now, if the handshake had not happened right now, maybe, and I'm only saying maybe, Raila would have already, spilled the beans that there's something burning, something simmering as far as the new issue that we have discussed, as far as the new NYS saga of 10 billion is concerned. He would have already brought it in the fourth, but because perhaps there are some forces which are hindering from not just exercising all that he ought to have exercised, perhaps I must say that that's why I'm saying it's bad for politics. But again, we have to ask ourselves whether, the person of Raila is the only person whom we should rely upon to bring such kind of scandals, to unearth them. The Eurobonds and all that. How do we set a system in this country where, with or without an handshake, we are able to be treated to these kind of exposures, and we are able to address the problems at hand as a country? Why am I saying it's good for economic? Is because now the handshake has already breathed some new life into terms of the new big four issues that the president has highlighted, some of his hallmarks. And because of that, I think the government is going to implement this with a lot of confidence.
But bad for politics, you say?
But it's bad for politics.
Thank you. Kipchumba, have the final thoughts.
When we talk about the handshake, there are a lot of many things that come into my mind as an individual. One, I see the rate of, or the hypocrisy with which politicians treat Kenyans. But having said that, the first handshake happened in Afra Stadium 5 years ago between the deputy president and the president, Uhuru Kenyatta. I think this now is the second handshake of these hyped to this nature. But what we must look at, Ben, ask yourself a very simple question. If you want to know what politicians think about the handshake, look at the 14 people or the 14-member team that was appointed. If you look at them, you have the most honest answer as to what we think about the handshake. If you are looking for whether it will go far or where it will reach, you just have to look at the team. Secondly, I think the handshake, why the handshake is going the way it's going, one of the handshake principle has taken too much credit from it. Look at it this way. Raila Odinga was not the only principal in NASA. We had Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula, Isaac Ruto, and all those others. But what is happening now, it is only Raila Odinga who moves from one corner of the country to the other. My thinking is this. I think he's trying to endear himself to a certain clique of people. He went to Rift Valley to greet Muse.
So in short, you're saying it's about 2022?
It is about 2022. And let me give you another pointer. Another pointer. Yesterday, there was a rally where Gideon Moi attended. The Secretary General of ODM was there. The minority whip, Malala, was there. When you tell us the handshake is not about 2022, I think you are trying to play games.
Thank you. Last we leave it on that bombshell by Kipchumba Karori, as always. Very many thanks for joining us on the broadcast this morning. Let me just go through some of your tweets very quickly. And Jay here, Kevin, says, I wrote this some time back. The golden handshake meant come we loot and cover each other. Where is Junet Mohammed John Mbadi today? See no evil. Rotich Nehemiah says the question of referendum or not is a misplaced priority. Kenya needs jobs, jobs, jobs. Mark Bichache is on point. Francis Ndwiga says, on my way to Garissa, but following the conversation, to thank you. One here. Don Sabo says, I think Chebukati does not live in Kenya if he can say he's ready. Mark Bichache, can you find the bearing of this guy and detour him to Kenya? And one here. Alois NYS says, that NYS saga came as no surprise to me. The moment they started showing back NYS adverts on TV, I predicted that new money was being stolen. It's too unfortunate. Many thanks for your tweets, for your views on the conversation this morning. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me and helping me put perspectives in some of these very important conversations. Kipchumba Karori, political strategist, governance expert Brian Mutie, political analyst and communication expert Mark Bichache, and political risk analyst Dismas Mukwe. Let's do this again next Sunday. That's why we leave it on the broadcast. Join us every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. as we dissect the biggest political stories in the Republic. I'm Ben Kitili. Bye for now.